Good morning and welcome to our monthly webinar. We're sending out notifications and trying to get all our tech perfect, and we're going to start shortly. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Saturday morning here in Louisiana, although I know a lot of you around the country are dealing with just a skosh of snow right now, my parents included. Try to share the talk if you can. This is going to impart just basic knowledge about diet and exercise, hopefully give everybody hope that's out there struggling, and not make it too scary, I guess, to achieve optimal health, which is my goal for myself and for everybody else. So I'm Dr. Meredith Warner. I'm a practicing orthopedic surgeon in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I teach for LSU Orthopedics as well in New Orleans. But I have a very, very deep and heavy interest in natural medicine, healthy living, anti-aging, and all of that stemmed from my years of treating people with orthopedic pain and realizing that a lot of what we do never seems to get anybody better. So I started delving into things more and more, learned about nutrition, learned more about exercise, learned more about fascia and the importance of stretching and balance muscles and the biomechanics of the human body, and then herbal remedies, natural remedies, the importance of vitamins and different nutrients, and then oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. So it's been sort of a continuum of learning for me, which is great. But I've realized, I wish I knew now what I wish I knew 20 years ago or 10 years ago what I know now. I think I would have helped a lot more people in a lot better ways, but that's all you can do is keep trying to get better and better. And I'm going to talk today about diet and exercise, which if everybody sort of live the way that really we all should be living, you probably would not need very many orthopedic surgeons, I have to say. So I'm going to try to put myself out of work during this next hour or so with you. Let's get started. That's me. Okay, so this is my clinic. It took me a long time to get to the point where I was able to be in a building that let me achieve the wellness goals I have for my patients, friends, and family. I have it set up with a line of offices, a huge physical therapy gym, and then another line of offices. And that's because physical medicine or actual movement and understanding and making the body work better is very, very important to health, certainly to orthopedic surgery. So I think physical medicine, physical therapy is absolutely integral and mandatory to what I do as an orthopedic surgeon. And from that, we've had offshoots of massage. We have an infrared spa to sit in that imparts different health benefits. We have a physiatrist. We do nerve conduction testing. I've got an awesome podiatrist, Kyle Lindo. We do acupuncture. We do yoga workshops periodically. And then we have an awesome esthetician who helps us with the beauty side of wellness, and that's Smooth by Sarah. And then this is where we are. So for me, it's important to have a healthy, clean, happy environment with all of the lights or daylight spectrum, which imparts certain health benefits. A lot of natural light, again, a lot of health benefits. The colors I picked to be pleasing, again, health benefits. We use aromatherapy, again, more health benefits. So everything we do is geared to making the patients that come in and out of the office feel better and hopefully learn some things and become healthier. I don't ever have enough time to sort of tell patients what I really should be telling them each and every time. So that's why I do these educational series. Okay, so diet and exercise, everybody's favorite subject, right? Particularly in January. Well, although it's almost the end of January now. So most people traditionally make quote unquote New Year's resolutions where they swear they're going to go to the gym, swear they're going to lose weight, I'm going to stop eating candy, whatever it is. Generally, most of these goals don't work out, and you don't achieve the goal, you don't hit the milestones you want, and then people get depressed, and of course that becomes a self-fulfilling cycle and you get worse and worse and worse. So with the right tools though, and the right guidance, I think you can achieve goals if they're realistic goals and if they're actually going to be beneficial to you and sustainable. So for instance, you could do a crash diet and lose probably 50 pounds in a year, but statistics and studies show usually you're going to gain all of that back. Unfortunately, that's true a lot of times for bariatric surgery. Although I refer people out for bariatric surgery a fair amount, I think that I've seen that surgery fail along with a lot of other surgeries that fail, of course. So it's always better to do things naturally if you can. So we're going to talk about that now. Now, one thing that I hate about diets and fad diets and people that, let's say, are hyper interested in exercise is I find that it sort of imparts a type A personality, if you will, and it becomes very stressful. So if you're stressing out about every calorie in a pack of ketchup, right? Or if you've got to whip your phone out when you're grocery shopping and check your points all the time, although that works great for some people, that diet works wonderfully for my mother. If you're worried about, do I eat tomatoes on Wednesdays, or can I have strawberries after 8 p.m.? When you start having diets like that, it just becomes a little bit stressful, and then guess what happens? Your cortisol levels go up, and you increase your oxidative stress anyway through mental stress. So for me, a successful diet and a successful exercise routine would not increase your mental stress to the point where it becomes detrimental to your health. So the whole purpose of weight loss, dieting, and exercise, in my mind, is not actual weight loss. It doesn't really matter what you look like, in my opinion, although looking good has certain health benefits mentally, of course. What matters is that losing weight means you reduce chronic inflammation and you reduce oxidative stress. And if you've watched my other talks, or if you go back and watch the one about oxidative stress, you'll know what I mean. All day long, your mitochondria are producing byproducts, sort of like exhaust out of a car when you're running the engine. That exhaust is attacking your body and killing your cells. So you have to have some way to capture that exhaust and neutralize it and get it out of the system. And that's where antioxidants and phytochemicals come into play. And then chronic inflammation is just low-grade autoimmune type disorders. You're just constantly attacking yourself with proteins called cytokines. And if you have too much fat, the proteins are called adipokines. So fat cells themselves actually produce chronic inflammation on an ongoing basis, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, which means every pound of fat extra that you have, not only does your heart have to pump blood through an extra mile of capillaries, but you are also basically just attacking yourself with just annoying pinpricks all day long of inflammation. So for my goal, this is all about optimal health. This has nothing to do with if you were a size 10, a size 1X, whatever. That doesn't matter. You've got to look at the big picture, which is helping your brain, your heart, your arteries with reductions in chronic inflammation and oxidative stress. So what's the best way to fail at your goals is to be unrealistic. So some people can have crazy, amazing, perfect lifestyles, right? Usually they have private chefs, they're ultra wealthy, they've got people coddling to them, and it's a little bit easier to follow a very strict routine, particularly if your income depends upon it. So supermodels, professional athletes, actresses, they're heavily invested in staying certain sizes to look certain ways on camera and things like that. There's certain reasons that you have to have certain physical attributes, if you will. And in those cases, certain crazy diets might work well. But for the rest of us, having an unrealistic goal is you're automatically setting yourself up for failure. So for me, I want my patients to understand, why do you even care about not eating Cheetos? Like, why would that ever be important to you? You really have to think about it. Do you want to live a little bit longer? If you live longer, do you want to live well? Do you want to be able to think when you're older? Do you want to be able to walk? Do you want to be able to play with your grandkids? Do you want to be able to get out of bed without being so stiff that you can barely move? Do you want to be in less pain when you get older? So for me, that's what diet and exercise is all about, nothing else. It's all about you, your personal goals, and being there for your friends and family as you get older. So let's talk a little bit how to make it realistic. So you may or may not have heard of SMART goals. Is actually a psychological technique. They have to be specific, that's your S, measurable, that's your M, A is your achievable, R is relevant, so it needs to be relevant to your goals, and then T, time bound. So you can't just say, I think I'm going to stop eating Cheetos, but you never say when. So it could be now, or it could be the year 2030 that you stop eating Cheetos. You got to have a time bound goal. It's got to be specific. I'm going to stop eating processed foods for a month this week if the ingredients are more than 10 on the bag. See, that's a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goal. So that's the key. You just make small baby step goals and then you achieve them. So start small, like we said. You cannot revamp every part of your life at once. It's impossible. You're guaranteed to have mental stress. So in my patients, a lot of times, a lot of people in the South eat what's called bunny bread. And in the Northeast, it's Wonder Bread. So that's your highly processed, enriched, bleached white flour that is factory made under high heat processing using chemical derivatives, and then puffed with air to make it fluffy so that you think your bologna sandwich or your peanut butter sandwich tastes better on it. but that's one of the most pro-inflammatory foods on earth. So if I can just get a patient to agree to stop bunny bread for a month, that's a smart goal. Then if they do that, either A, they realize it wasn't that difficult to do, and I can continue to coach them on the long-term benefits, or they might find they actually feel better because they've reduced their level of inflammation. Because those factory produced highly inflammatory food products, and I wouldn't really call it food, they're sort of like, they look like food, they're pseudo foods. They actually induce inflammation and oxidative stress. So start small, build a routine. So like if you think you're going to start exercising, just make it a routine. If you're time crunched and you can multitask, like listen to a podcast while you walk or something like that, do that. Just start making it a routine. So for me, taking the amount of antioxidants and anti-inflammatories that I take from my Line the Well theory, it has to be a routine. And it took me a while to do it, but now I take a certain set in the morning and a certain set at night every single day. If I travel, I pack baggies. Now it's a routine for me. And then you have to sleep. You have to recover, especially as we get older. So 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Your recovery time frame is going to be a little bit longer than when you were 16. So when I was in high school, I rode crew for my boarding school in Delaware. And we had, in our pre-camp, we did 4-a-days. So we'd have 4 exercise sessions a day. And then during season, we would have 2 practices a day. But you're young, you can recover well from that. But if I tried to do that now, I don't think it would be a pretty picture. So I'm thinking that you need to think about recovery just as much as you need to think about the exercise. And sleep's a big part of that. So nobody's asking you to look like this natural bodybuilder here in the top right, okay? That is the stressful lifestyle that I don't want to be a part of. But if you're doing that, kudos to you, it's amazing. But I don't think for optimal life and to reduce the incidence of non-communicable chronic diseases like diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, heart disease, Parkinson's, I don't think you have to look like this guy. I just had a hand shook at me. Oh, go back one. I wasn't, sorry, that was confusing me. So here's your SMART goals. So bad idea. It's a new year. I'm going to compete in and win a natural bodybuilding contest. Then I'll buy Bitcoin with my earnings. That's unrealistic. It's not achievable. It makes no sense. And it's not relevant to your long-term health goals. So not a SMART goal. So next, a better idea. I think I want to be able to take walks with my kids and grandkids and also be able to talk to them at the same time while we enjoy nature. I think I'm going to start by walking up and down my own driveway once or twice each day this week. And even better if you take that walk after you eat, because that drops your glycemic level by 20%. That's an achievable goal. It's smart, it's small, it's measurable, and you can build on that. So you don't have to be a superhero here. Literally getting off the couch and walking up and down the driveway a couple times a day is going to get you closer to where you need to be. And also, I'm constantly surprised that anybody drinks regular sugar-filled sodas anymore, because it's just such a high glycemic dump on your body. But some people still do. So that's another smart, small goal you could do to try to, I guess, achieve your long-term optimized health goals. Okay, so which diet? What should I do? Have you read this? But what about this? What about gluten? What about the keto diet? Should I be on Jenny Craig? What about Weight Watchers? What about this Whole30? Should I do the food pyramid? Should I eat like Gisele Bündchen and Tom Brady? I mean, should I just stop eating at all? What about being a vegan? I mean, there's a million paths you can follow, and I'm going to tell you the one that I think has the most evidence, makes the most sense scientifically, and is the most foundational for optimal health. Okay, so my personal belief is that the Mediterranean lifestyle, the Mediterranean diet, is the absolute best way to go about achieving all of the health goals that you want to achieve. And the reason is, I believe that most of our fundamental problems come down to the basic mechanics of how the cell works, okay? We all breathe oxygen. We've evolved on a planet with oxygen. Oxygen is integral to the energy production system in our body. Water is a waste product. That's why you urinate, okay? And carbon dioxide is a waste product. That's why you breathe out. So the fundamental mechanics of the way the human body, as well as plants and animal bodies work, comes down to the process of converting food into fuel with oxygen. okay? The byproducts of that are oxidative stress, which are negative electrons that are unpaired, running around, destroying things that they touch. So that's why you need a diet very heavy with antioxidants, and that's the Mediterranean diet because of the heavy emphasis on locally sourced, if possible, fruits and vegetables. That's where you get all of your micronutrients and phytonutrients. And then also the healthy fats. So olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, first cold press, versus seed oils that are heavily processed in factories, or animal fats, because those latter two are very pro-inflammatory for a variety of reasons. Olive oil in and of itself, if you just drank olive oil, that is very anti-inflammatory. But it can't be cheap olive oil that is not extra virgin first cold press in a clear bottle, because that's already oxidized and destroyed. So you have to think about the quality of your food too. And that's the other reason I like Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean lifestyle emphasizes home cooked meals, cooked with family and friends, bought fresh, and cooked in a relatively short time from when you bought it, okay? And that's where you achieve all of the underlying benefits to oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. And it's fun, and they're delicious, and it's something you do with your friends and family. I mean, what could be better, right? Who wants to go on the keto diet with you or the paleo diet? No one. Who wants to do this with you? Probably everyone. We have a question.
This goes back to your walking part.
Okay.
What if you have constant pain in your legs, and the pain gets a lot worse when you walk and even worse when you climb any stairs?
Okay. So the question is, talking about how walking is important for health, or the goal of I want to be able to walk. The question is, what do you do if every time you walk your legs hurt and it's worse going upstairs? Well, as a physician, if somebody came in and told me that, the first thing I would want to rule out is lack of arterial blood flow to the legs. So I would do an arterial flow analysis to make sure that there's no ischemic disease to the muscles. If you rule that out and you can get it down to just muscle pain, well, that'll get better with time. If it's arthritis, there's a whole host of ways to manage that. So if it's like your hip, your knee, and your ankle, and we've talked about treatments for that before, ranging from platelet-rich plasma to different injections, different exercise, to all the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory natural medicines, to Celebrex, things like that, to sort of reduce the inflammatory pain of arthritis, to let you move more. Any movement's better than no movement, but if your knee is so bad that you can't walk up and down the driveway, maybe there's a little bit more that you're going to have to do. Without seeing x-rays or actually hands-on, I can't really answer that too well. But I would first make sure there's actual good blood flow to the legs, because that sounds like ischemic kind of pain where your muscles aren't getting enough oxygen. Okay.
Do you need to exercise every day, and how long?
So the question is, do you need to exercise every day, and how long? If you hold on just a few seconds, I'm gonna get to that. I have a specific section about exercise. These are all great questions. But for now, let's focus on the food part, which is Mediterranean. And what is the Mediterranean diet? Okay, so the Mediterranean Sea, obviously, is what this is named after. And it's really, it started with a study that was done, I want to say in the 1950s, by Dr. Ansel Keys. And the diet was somewhat the study was somewhat controversial, but since then, multiple offshoot studies have been done that have proven the truth to this study over and over and over and over again. And honestly, everybody that ranks diets, even USAA Today, has said that Mediterranean diet is consistently the #1 most proven way to improve your health and lose weight, stay healthy and happy. So the principles of this, which are based on certain countries that surround the Mediterranean, what Dr. Keys did was he looked at terrible health sections like Northern Europe, USA, particularly in railroad communities, I think, and then very good health areas around the Mediterranean. And he followed diets and lifestyle for a while. And it was really one of the first times anybody did this. And he found that certain diets promoted really good health and certain did not. And he really, accounting for all variables that could go into this is what he figured out, that it came down to what people eat. So you are what you eat, just like your mom told you. So the keys are reduced stress, again, mental stress. So this diet kind of tries to eliminate that. The Mediterranean type foods, which I'm going to tell you what that is. Exercise, moderate exercise, which we're about to talk about. And then supplementing for key nutrients. So it's heavy on omega-3s, polyunsaturated fatty acids, versus omega-6, which is what our diets are heavy in. Resveratrol, which is the so-called anti-aging phytochemical, tart cherry, turmeric, D3. So all of these phytochemicals that neutralize the exhaust coming out of the car and also reduce inflammation are in this diet naturally. And they are not in diets that are just meat or just fat diets. Okay. So these are my reasons that I love it. And so this picture, the top right circle with the little arrows and the little blocks, that's sort of showing you the pathway of the oxidative phosphorylation or the electron transport chain in the mitochondria. So this is how your body makes energy. You just move electrons up and down, get a little bit of energy out of that, create a proton gradient, then all the protons drop through this turbine in the cell and create energy. Okay, the byproduct being those unpaired electrons and then inflammation. So the Mediterranean diet lets that process happen very efficiently and effectively and neutralizes all of the bad guys. So number one, avoid ultra-processed foods. And I'm going to talk about that briefly because that's a whole talk on itself. That is the number one reason I think this diet works, is the avoidance of ultra-processed foods, factory-made, fake foods, things that you would not find in nature. You would never go out camping and find ruffles growing on a tree. So if you don't think this is something that you could find somewhere, like, you know, if you have a plant and you pull up the root and it's a Cheeto, that doesn't happen. So I think if you start to think of it that way, like if I had an 80-year-old grandmother from Italy, what would she make me for dinner? She is not pulling out a Hot Pocket and throwing it in the microwave. Okay, she's going to make you homemade pasta in a natural way with fresh ingredients that you probably walked to the store and bought for you that day. Okay, start thinking about it that way. Okay, moderate alcohol is okay in this diet, so you don't have to be a teetotaler. In fact, studies show over and over again, and there's some controversy here too, and I'm sure there's some physicians out there that would completely disagree with me. Most studies seem to show that no alcohol is just as bad as a lot of alcohol. For some reason, a little bit of alcohol helps, whether it's by hormesis, which means that it stresses the cells just enough to make them stronger, or it just makes your blood pressure drop. Nobody really has figured this out fully, but it appears that moderate alcohol, particularly red wine, because of the resveratrol, seems to be helpful. And by moderate, I mean 1 to 2 glasses at the most a day. And then phytochemicals, we talked about that. Huge part of the reason this diet is awesome. And it endorses whole natural foods that you cook at home. And that's right next to avoid ultra-processed foods. So those two go hand in hand. Moderate exercise is a part of this diet and lifestyle. And then everything together, the whole combined situation of this Mediterranean lifestyle / diet, whatever you want to call it, reduces inflammation and oxidative stress. And that's been proven. All right, so just real quick, there's hundreds of studies written about this diet, comparing it head-to-head with other diets, okay? I'm just gonna give you the basics. So on the right side, you see 3 to 9 servings of vegetables every day, 0.5 to 1 serving of fruit every day. Now, I tend to eat more fruit than vegetables just because it's easier to take to the office for me for whatever reason. But the point is, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables every day. 1 to 13 cups of cereals. So cereals are not perfectly formed, enriched, bleached white flour after they deconstruct the kernel of wheat and then take it apart, add some solvents, bleach it, pass it through some machinery at high heat, then go back and add the vitamins and minerals that they took out at the first step. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like spelt, quinoa, barley, things like that. Like actual real grains are actually really good for you. And then up to 8 servings a day of extra virgin olive oil, EVOO. Hugely important part of this diet. If at all possible now, that is all I use to cook with, and maybe some avocado oil now. Okay, so it's been proven to reduce all-cause mortality. Any reason that you can think of that a human might die, this lifestyle reduces that. Helps to treat diabetes mellitus, helps to treat cardiovascular disease, helps with neurodegeneration. Cognitive abilities in people that are relatively normal versus mildly demented versus having actual neurodegenerative disorders all do better on this diet cognitively. Many offshoots have proven this, as we discussed, off of the original 7 countries study. One of these is the Lionheart study, which was a follow-up study, and another one is the PREDIMED study, which is both of these are European studies, I believe. Follow-up study after follow-up study after follow-up study, breaking it down, looking at different variables, looking at different factors. Nobody can dispute the power of this particular lifestyle. And in a nutshell, on the right side, that's all you got to remember, and try to make it all yourself. It's pretty simple if you think about it. And the more packaged foods you can avoid eating every day, and if you even just drop 1 a month, you're going to find you don't want it anymore. When you eat it, you feel terrible, and you actually don't even like the taste anymore. Once you begin to eat more like a human should eat. Sorry, next. All right, so the principles again, to reiterate, because it's important. Whole and natural foods that are actual foods that really exist, not inventions by the food industry designed to be addictive and make money. Olive oil, extra virgin. More fish, less meat. I try to tell, now I'm in Louisiana in the deep South, and a lot of people struggle with this concept, shall we say. Trying to convince some of my patients to drop red meat down to once a month is difficult, but when they do it, they all feel better. They all have less pain. They save money, they lose weight, and generally enjoy it more when they do have it. Moderate exercise, again, we're going to get there, moderate alcohol, and importantly, fellowship with friends and family. This is a social lifestyle. You cook with friends and family. You go to parties, you go to events. You know, everything is a social thing, but you're just doing it in a whole and natural way, hopefully using olive oil. And then an appreciation of nature, of being outside. There's another whole talk. We could talk about the importance of just being around trees, what that does for health, or water. There's a reason spas are always by an ocean or a spring water center, right? And then there's a tenfold difference that was seen in the original Ansel Keys 7-country study between the health of Finland and Crete regarding cardiovascular disease, 10 times better in Crete, okay? Because of their diet alone. That was the only difference. Because in Finland, it was heavy on the omega-6, heavy on trans fats, low on phytochemicals and micronutrients. Crete was the opposite, 10 times more heart disease in Finland, okay? And he was Dr. Keys was one of the original discoverers, I guess, or pioneers in the realization that saturated fat, approved by the FDA in this country, as well as trans fats, as additives to food, by the way, he discovered that that correlates strongly with heart risk. And if you can replace that heavy bad fat, like butter, Crisco, lard, all those kind of things, or manufactured fats, if you can replace it with the polyunsaturated fatty acids and the monounsaturated fatty acids, so your omega-6s like salmon and things like that, or olive oil, which is omega-9, and whole grains is better than replacing it with sugar and refined carbohydrates. So if you remember back in the day, a lot of diet foods, and even today, diet, reduce fat, well, they just make it, they figured out in an engineering lab somewhere that if they replace this much fat with this much sugar and refined carbohydrates, they can sort of get the same texture and mouthfeel and taste. Well, they ended up making a food that's far worse for you because now you've combined some trans fat with these high levels of high fructose corn syrup or other sweetener forms, and you basically created a monster food that then attacks you. Okay, so a lot of diet foods don't work well because of that reason. Question was, if you eat bread fish, do you get the same? I'm not sure what bread fish is. I don't know if that means breaded and fried. I would say no. You really want wild caught fish cooked in a healthy manner. So a lot of fish nowadays that are used to make fish sticks and things like frozen fish stuff you get in the market, a lot of that's farm raised, and they're feeding those fish the same things they feed the livestock. And so they're not naturally filled with omega-3 like a wild caught fish is. So it's important how you source your food, and you got to think about the provenance of your food. So if you're going to eat a lot more fish, I wouldn't bread it and fry it, and I would make sure it was wild caught. The question is omega-6 bad for you? Yeah, omega-6 is a normal part of us and a normal part of a normal diet. Even the Mediterranean diet has omega-6 in it. The problem is our diets are heavily skewed towards omega-6, so we all have the wrong ratio. You should have more omega-3 than omega-6, and we are like this, 20 to 1 almost. The way we should be is closer to 1 to 1, if not 2 to 1 omega-3 to 6. So some omega-6 is okay, but by and large, you're going to get more than enough omega-6 just living in America than you could ever possibly need. And so I would always err to taking omega-3. And there's actually a lot of studies that show supplementing with omega-3 reduces pain. Why? Because it reduces inflammation. How does it do that? Because if omega-3 fills the cell membranes from which the inflammatory mediators are created, it drives that inflammation down a more pro-resolvin or anti-inflammatory pathway, as opposed to the omega-6, which goes down the inflammatory autoimmune pathway. So it's very important to have a good ratio of 3 to 6. Some 6 is okay. A lot of 3 is better. So the question is, can you cook in coconut oil, organic, whole, cold press, unrefined? Yeah, I think that's fine, but no study has proven that to be better than olive oil. So I think if you need it for certain recipes, it's way better than, Crisco or vegetable oil that you get in the clear plastic little bottle at the grocery store, and it's like really cheap, which makes you wonder. So I think it's okay in small amounts. There's nothing terribly wrong with it. But it's not going to ever be as good for you as the omega-9s and the monounsaturated fatty acids of the olive oil. The other thing about olive oil has that no other oil has is it naturally has a ton of phytochemicals and antioxidants in it if it's the extra virgin. Okay, so again, avoid super processed and ultra processed foods. And one of the reasons I put the term age here, and you might think I'm talking about getting older, that actually stands for advanced glycation end products. Now, I could talk briefly about that. That is another whole talk, and why I think this is probably the reason there's such a strong link between diet and health. So a lot of these super processed foods produce more of these monster proteins in them during the processing pathway, I guess. Even just cooking your own food in high heat, dry heat will create advanced glycation end products. You eat those, you absorb them into your system. Those things glom on to different proteins like collagen, like your lens protein, arterial wall proteins, and they alter the normal function of your normal proteins, induce inflammation, induce oxidative stress, and generally muck up all the normal functions of your body. So the fewer of these advanced glycation end products you can intake, the better, and the better off your health is. And I think that's the fundamental foundational link between all of this, but that's kind of a whole different talk, which I'd love to give one day. In olive oil, we talked about monounsaturated fatty acid filled with phytochemicals and antioxidants and anti-inflammatory in and of itself. Here we are, the omega 3 to 6 ratio imbalance. We just talked about that. The phytochemicals and micronutrients. So everything, if you're eating 3 to 9 servings of vegetables a day and 2 servings of fruits a day, think about the number of vitamins, flavonoids, terpenes, terpenoids, phenols, all of these different amazing antioxidant and anti-inflammatory little molecules that are out there naturally. You're putting them in your system to neutralize that car exhaust coming out of your mitochondria. So diets that are heavy in meat or avoid carbohydrates, I think are detrimental, my personal opinion. Flavonoid intake, flavonoid is a type of phytochemical, is inversely related to cardiovascular death risk. So the more flavonoids you can put into your system, the less likely you're going to die of heart disease and also other chronic non-communicable diseases. And then the strongest correlation was between the monounsaturated olive oil, polyunsaturated omega-3s like in salmon and herring and things, and the trans and saturated fats. So the more you can stay on the monopoly side with your diet and stay away from the trans fats and the big, thick, heavy fats, basically anything that is solid at room temperature, you want to try to stay away from, if that makes sense. And I will say that 80% of deaths in our world are related to cardiovascular disease. There's a reason a lot of the number one drugs are statins, things like that reduce cholesterol and try to reduce cardiovascular death. There's a reason cardiologists are killing it. There's a reason there's all of these stents being made and companies like Medtronic are making billions of dollars. It's because we're not eating correctly and we are basically filling their business model by avoiding monounsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, and eating too much of the trans and saturated fats. So you would think physicians would always prescribe diet and exercise first, right? But we don't. And that's why I'm doing this talk. All of this is in your own power. You don't have to take statins if you can control it with diet. I'm not saying stop your statins immediately, of course. I would never do that. But just start thinking about if you're eating poorly, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to feel bad. There's no way you can't. 2 questions. Yeah, sardines are an excellent source of omega-3. Yes, and herring, which I don't know if you've ever tried herring. I'm not a fan, but the Russians are. I mean, I think as much omega-3 as you can get in your system. I take 1,500 milligrams of omega-3 extra every day. in a supplement, mostly because I'm too busy to eat the amount of fish I should probably be eating. Some people take up to 4 grams a day of supplements, so I think you can eat a lot of sardines.
What about the canned tuna?
Canned tuna, anything canned and processed is not good, really, by definition. Now, is canned tuna better than Spam? Probably. But anything that's been processed to the point where it'll sit on a shelf and be okay to eat 3 years from now, you have to assume all of the nutritional value is gone and the level of advanced glycation end products is up. So I think canned tuna is probably better than eating a hamburger, but I don't eat canned tuna. If I'm going to eat tuna, I eat sushi, fresh sushi, or I try to go, buy a decent piece of tuna at the grocery store and cook it myself.
What about if your diet is great, but high cholesterol is in your genes?
So the age-old question of, it's my genes. The question is, what if you eat perfectly and you still have a genetic predisposition to having high cholesterol? There are some certain genetic issues, but a lot of people are starting to look at what's called epigenetics and the modification of genes with methylation and different ways to alter DNA through environment, particularly diet. So a lot of what people think is genetic is actually that the whole family kind of grew up in the same environment, eating the same things, having the same lifestyle. And so while it might appear to be hereditary, it's really just lifestyle because everybody had the same lifestyle in the same house, right? It's not like you've got a vegan with somebody eating cheese. Like everybody kind of eats the same in the same household. So there are some genetic issues, of course, but in general, if you follow this Mediterranean style way of living, your health will improve. It just can't not improve. Okay. So the great outcomes. So this is a PREDIMED study, which is the Prevención con Dieta Mediterránea. I think it was out of Spain. And they did an offshoot study. And this is one where they looked at 7,400 or so patients, okay? Randomized them into different groups, a low-fat diet, right? Which we used to be told all the time, low fat, low fat, low fat. Mediterranean diet, heavy on the nuts. Mediterranean diet, heavy on extra virgin olive oil. And they monitored them for 5 years, okay? One of the big problems with nutritional studies or studies looking at the effects of antioxidants that like the NIH likes to look at, they're very short term, which makes no sense to me. If you're going to make a change, this is years that you're making a change. And that's when you start to see the real health outcomes. So they looked at them for 5 years. And they found that both nuts and extra virgin olive oil do have health benefits, but there was a lower incident of cardiovascular disease and ischemia, that's a typo, with both, and prevents breast cancer, hypertension, diabetic retinopathy, that's the eye problem the diabetics get, arrhythmia or heart dysfunction and depression. And then the socioeconomic impact was not too great. So I thought that was an important part of the study. Not only did everybody get very, very healthy, but they found that it was affordable and it did not really impact people too much. And if you, I've talked about this before, the lifetime cost of a mild heart attack is about $500,000. Okay, a single mild heart attack, even if you have insurance, okay, that's your lifetime cost. So if it's a more major or severe heart attack, $750,000, okay, all in. So just spending a little bit of extra money for some fresh foods, for the extra virgin olive oil, and to avoid the cheap, highly processed, factory-made, mass-produced foods of the food industry will pay dividends at the end of the day, and you will be financially better off for it because the odds of you having a huge catastrophic health event that bankrupts you drops if you're healthier. And that's a fact. And a lot of people might dispute it, and I'm certain the pharmaceutical industry does not want to hear that, but if you're healthier, the odds of having a financially devastating health event drop. I'm not saying it never happens. Anything can happen to anybody, but the risk goes down considerably. So your oxidized low density lipoprotein drops, that's the LDL. Remember how everybody's always looking at your HDL LDL ratio? So the real problem with LDL is it gets oxidized and that turns into the atherosclerotic plaques, okay? That then you have a coronary and you have a heart attack. So the risk of that dropped in this group of 7,400 people, 72% lower risk of heart disease. Think about that. All of their inflammatory markers, so the serum levels that I check on my patients, all dropped. Weight dropped. The risk of diabetes dropped. Cardiovascular disease down, all types of cardiovascular disease down 33%. The main drivers of early death in the modern life: cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes mellitus, neurodegenerative, Alzheimer's, Parkinson. These are why we're dying, okay? Minus random things like fentanyl overdoses, violence, COVID, stuff like that. Generally speaking, this is what's killing us. And look above that. Easily managed just by eating a few more fruits and vegetables, cooking with extra virgin olive oil, throwing in a couple nuts. And then if you can't eat this diet perfectly, which most of us can't, you have to supplement. You got to supplement with your vitamins, you got to supplement with your omega-3, and you got to take a heavy amount of antioxidants. Just because our lives are just so, everything about modern life drives oxidative stress. So, next. Oh, we have a tough question. All right.
Is canned sardines bad?
Is what?
Canned sardines. Like how else do you get sardines?
Yeah. Question is, are canned sardines bad? And then I have a follow-up question of how else do you find sardines? I personally don't know because I'm not jumping to try to eat sardines. They're not my favorite. Although I do like a Caesar salad periodically. I think that if your choice, again, it's all relative, right? If we could all have a private chef that's getting this all, going fishing in the morning and bringing us fresh food, great. But it's not going to happen. But if your choice is between a hamburger from, like, I don't know, the Shake Shack or Five Guys or canned sardines, I would probably pick the canned sardines. I would do the ones in olive oil, but again, what type of olive oil are they using? And what type of water are they using? So just look at the ingredients. If they're just saying olive oil and it's not extra virgin olive oil and it's not a dark can, which I'm assuming it is, no, but if they're using extra virgin or at least virgin olive oil, then that's good because that means it's keeping the fish from oxidizing because of all the antioxidants in the olive oil. So I would say probably in the olive oil. Okay. Another question. Lisa asked, what does it mean if you have high triglycerides? So those are the big, heavy fat molecules running around. The LDL and the HDL are low density lipoprotein. They're lipoproteins. So think of that as fat combined with protein. The triglycerides are just big globules of fat floating around. High triglycerides are a marker of metabolic disease, insulin resistance, diabetes, and are certainly a risk factor for heart disease. If I have patients that have super high triglycerides and they're not on a supplemental fish oil or omega-3, that is one way to combat that risk. And it'll actually drop your triglyceride levels by supplementing with omega-3s. Obviously, I'm not dispensing treating advice. I can't do that. But talk to your physician about that. Okay. All right. So again, how does the Mediterranean diet reduce the main drivers of the NCDs? And NCDs, remember, are non-communicable diseases, chronic diseases. So you can't catch these. You just do it to yourself with lifestyle. So the phytochemicals, the flavonoids, the phenols, the micronutrients that are in, for instance, broccoli here. Probably one of the greatest superfoods on the planet is broccoli. Anti-inflammatory foods, whole grains, not enriched, bleached, processed flour. Make your own bread with whole grains if you can. I've started to make my own bread and I'm like happy as a clam because I love bread, but I'm not going to go eat bunny bread. Olive oil, extra virgin, omega-3s. They looked at another offshoot study, the Zutphen elderly study out of the Netherlands. Okay, they pulled a random group of men from the 7-country study, and they found that physical activity protects you from all-cause mortality again. The catechins and flavonoids are very beneficial. So the catechins are what you see in like green tea and black tea. It's a type of phytochemical found in teas often. And flavonoids, so think of berries or anything colorful has flavonoids. Sweet potatoes have a lot of beta carotene, carrots do, things like that. And then the alpha-linolenic acid has the largest health benefit, and that's your omega-3 versus your omega-6. Now, we're all going to still get some omega-6 like we talked about before, but the way that you can really help yourself is to get more omega-3. And all of that reduces all of those chronic diseases we already talked about. And they proved that again in yet another study. So again, avoid ultra-processed food. If there's one thing you remember from this talk, please avoid ultra-processed foods to the extent possible. Now, the American diet is 75 to 80% ultra-processed. Think about that, okay? 75 to 80% of what we eat has been created in a factory somewhere and packaged. It's a little bit scary if you think about it. So let's try to get that down to 70%. Then let's try to get that down to 65% and 60 and so on and so forth. Just cut out the non-natural foods one by one, and I guarantee you will feel better. High heat processing, which is how a lot of ultra processed foods are created, advances or increases the amount of advanced glycation end products. Anytime you brown meat, roast meat, grill meat, fry meat, you are creating heavy loads of advanced glycation end products. We can talk about ways to avoid it, but low heat, moist heat, stewing, poaching, those are better ways to cook, or marinating in an acidic environment before you cook helps to reduce the dietary ages. But those are what's really destroying you. And then the problem with ultra processed foods is they're energy dense. So, you know, an apple might have, I don't know, 50 to 80 calories, right? You get that with one bite of a candy bar, a small bite. So it's just too much energy and too little of a package. It's ridiculous. And then there's still trans fats. Do you know it took the FDA until 2018 to say that trans fats were illegal? Okay. But they also said OxyContin was a good idea and Opana 3. So, and they also think high fructose corn syrup was a good idea. So, you know, just because the government says some foods are okay and they don't, you know, kill you if you eat a cartload of them, you may want to think about the Mediterranean diet and be a little bit skeptical about that. There are still trans fats present in food because as long as they can say that it's less than 0.1%, they're allowed to say no trans fats per the regulatory environment we live in right now. Next. What are powerful antioxidants we should eat? That's a question. So there's different types of antioxidants. I mean, you make your own, okay? So anything you eat that allows your body to make more of them helps. So like ALA or alpha lipoic acid is great for that. It helps upregulate your levels of glutathione. Small molecule antioxidants like vitamin C are great. D3 actually can increase the function of antioxidants. CBD is a great antioxidant. Okay, tart cherry extract, any kind of berry has high levels of flavonoids and phenols that act as antioxidants as well. Yeah, any berry, any colorful fruit, colorful vegetable is going to give you really good levels of antioxidants. Okay, so this is a good question. So the question is an air fryer a good way to cook? So when it first came out, I thought, oh, this is great. We can maybe mimic fried foods and not have them fried. Well, actually, I don't think it's that good for us anymore. And I don't use our air fryer anymore because it is a dry, high heat. What's the number one way to make advanced glycation end products? Dry, high heat. So I'm not a huge fan of the air fryer now. But I understand in some situations it's probably still better than frying, of course. So, you know, all we can do is baby steps. Like I said, SMART goals. No one's going to be perfect overnight.
So James had a good point. If you stay off the grocery store aisles where the processed foods are and stick to the outer aisles, that's a good start.
Yeah, James brings up a good point, a good start to achieve these goals and try to start being a little bit more like the Mediterranean lifestyle is to stay on the outer edges or the perimeter of the grocery stores. They've designed it in such a way, not only do you have the impulse buys right at the register that psychologically get you to buy something, but they've lined all the middle aisles with all the highly processed, energy dense, terrible food monsters. So just stay out of the middle rows unless it's a health food row, and then just go to the fresh vegetables and whatnot around the periphery, okay? That's a great way to start. Thank you, James. Next.
How about coffee? Is that a part of the Mediterranean lifestyle?
Questions about coffee. Is that part of the lifestyle? Yes. Lots of tea, lots of coffee. Coffee's interesting. Coffee in and of itself is very antioxidant, and many studies have shown you have less cognitive decline the more coffee you drink, and you're generally healthier. Same with tea. But coffee beans are dry roasted. So in theory, they have high levels of advanced glycation end products. You know, the question is, when you do the decoction or you extract the material of the coffee bean by way of hot water, are you pulling more phytochemicals and antioxidants than ages? And I would say because studies show ultimate good health outcomes, the answer is yes. I drink coffee. I'm probably not going to ever stop drinking coffee, so I hope I'm right. But it's a plus minus with coffee, but studies have shown you have less cognitive decline. It is a part of these lifestyles. Tea is as well. I cannot make myself be a tea drinker. My mom drinks hot tea. I've tried. I think it's cool. I think there's all kind of different teas that are amazing. I just can't do it. I always end up going back to my Italian roast coffee. So a lot of data supports coffee drinking, but there is that high heat processing of the beans we do need to think about. Okay, great questions.
From Debbie. Debbie has a follow-up.
Debbie.
So shopping at a natural food store is the way to go?
Is shopping at a natural food store the way to go? I would say about 10 years ago, yes, but big industry has finally caught on that most people would like to be healthy. So remember when Whole Foods was the only option you had, or like the natural co-op, if you were in an urban area that you could go find a co-op where all of the local farmers sent their food. But nowadays, honestly, every grocery store seems to be having more and more organic produce, more and more healthy I don't want to say natural. There's no healthy processed food. But I think that you can still find decent products at regular grocery stores. But by and large, yes, Whole Foods is going to give you by far your best meat options, your best vegetable options, your best fruit options. And then, stepwise down. They call it whole paycheck, of course. It is a little bit more expensive. But again, the lifetime cost, one visit to the ICU, and you have lost way more money than you could dream of buying good quality foods. Steve, these are great questions. I knew there were going to be a lot of questions, and I tried to do a lot of research. So the question is about
Like
fake sweeteners like stevia, I guess, which is a little bit different and better than Splenda and saccharin. Then, of course, you've got your monk fruit and your erythritol. There's different, more natural sweeteners that don't have a calorie. I think in moderation, like small amounts, it's probably better than having refined sugar, for sure. Sugar we know is toxic and we know is poisonous. The artificial sweeteners are hit or miss in the studies, I think. It would be great if we could all drink unsweetened everything. I put agave in my coffee. It's natural, but agave, in theory, gives you a lower glycemic index, but what it's really giving you is a high load of fructose, honestly. So you have to be able to handle that high load of fructose. Fructose can cause a whole bunch of problems too if you're living in a hyperglycemic state. I think stevia and monk fruit and erythritol are probably better than Splenda and saccharin in terms of overall health benefits. Anything you could do to avoid fake or refined sugar is probably good. Okay. So this is all well and good, right? Everybody's thinking, I have some patients that it's just really hard for them to be healthy. And they really have trouble saying no to that snack food that somebody brings to the office, okay? So I just wanted to briefly give you a trick to do this. And I've been reading a lot about brain health, and that's why I'm so big on sleep. Your brain has to detoxify and reset and sort of remodulate and rebuild neurons every day. So, and you have to turn off your brain periodically for this to happen. So the people that are always looking at phones, always looking at computers, that never take their eyes off of it, never allow their brain time to reset and get healthy. So this is one thing you could do. It's a breathing exercise. I think it's actually from yoga, from the pranayama, the healthy breathing of yoga. I think Andrew Weil, who's a natural medicine doctor in Arizona, I want to say, I think he first described it in the terms I'm about to. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. So let's say you're at the office and somebody brings a beautiful box of donuts. What do you do? You're craving it. Your mind's like, I want that donut, I want that donut, I want that donut. How do you stop? Give your brain a rest, and I guarantee that craving will stop. So what you do is you breathe in through your nose for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 7, and then breathe out through the mouth for a count of 8. Okay, and your tongue should be behind your front teeth. When you're breathing out, that's the pranayama position, okay? It sort of opens the back of the throat and allows better breathing. If you do this, especially if you can do it with your eyes closed, if you do it 4 times in a row, by way of mechanical receptors or mechanoreceptors in the passages, the olfactory bulb, which is a nerve root in the back of the nose, the cortical mantle, you will reduce cravings and those perpetuating circular thoughts that make you think you want that donut. So you're going to activate areas of the brain you normally can't activate, which will give you that control that you are lacking, that impulse control. So all you do is just do it 4 times in a row. I bet you won't want that donut. Okay? So that's just a little trick. Next. Okay. So moderate alcohol, let's talk about that again. A lot of people think you shouldn't drink at all, and a lot of people binge drink. Both are bad. So alcohol's been around since the Bible, if not before. It's a traditional human endeavor, okay? It was a way to preserve water, really, to allow it safe to drink. If you read any novels or historical works set in the medieval times or anywhere in the past before refrigeration, people drank beer or mead all day long, every day. Nobody drank water because water was going to kill you, right? Because everybody was doing their laundry, all their hygiene, everything in the river going through. You can't drink that water. So you would have to ferment it and process it to make it safe to drink. So alcohol's been around since time began. Not since time began, of course. Someone's going to dispute me on that, I'm sure. And it gives us social time and fellowship, which is very important for human beings, okay? If there's one thing COVID's done, it's destroyed social time and fellowship, okay? And we need to get that back. That says battery running low. And then alcohol, red wine especially, has resveratrol. Resveratrol is a longevity phytochemical, okay? Resveratrol can, the way it works on cells, it actually lengthens different parts of the DNA that allows more long life and lets the cell function longer and better. And it mimics intermittent fasting, actually, the effect on the cells. Resveratrol is an extremely important phytochemical. I put it in our nervous system multi for that reason. So if you want to live long and have less cognitive decline and do well, you have to be getting resveratrol from somewhere, okay? And so red wine, I have no talk now. Red wine will give you that, okay? Hold on, my screen went blank. Hold on, guys. Sorry. Do we have a question I can answer while I'm waiting for my talk? So anyway, resveratrol. So there's different questions of dosing on resveratrol. That's a question? That sounded like a statement. Okay. Oh, okay. The question is tap water, distilled water, bottled water, or are they all of the same value to your body? Of course, you could get even further into that question about what pH of water should you have. I think I drink my water from a very, I don't want to say big, it's not that big, pretty decent sized filtration system. And the reason I do that, and I'm in Baton Rouge and we get our water from an aquifer, from spring water, but I just don't trust the municipal water systems to not be filling water full of like lead and bacteria and terrible things. So I personally drink tap water that goes through this specialized filter system. Most bottled water, first of all, it's in a plastic bottle. That can't be good. Most bottled water is really just city tap water that enterprising people buy in a municipality somewhere, run it through a reverse osmosis bag, and then stick it in a bottle. So a lot of bottled water is really just tap water. If you're going to drink anything, I mean, I think spring water, that's from the earth and it's natural. And I think as long as you can prove it doesn't have lead or microorganisms, that's probably the best way to go. And then, of course, you can have what I call fizzy water or fuzzy water, where you add a little bit of CO2 to give you that fizz that you like. That's good too. Mineral water. All right. So alcohol and hormesis. Hormesis is a thing in the body where a little bit of stress actually makes you better. So that's why exercise is good. A little bit of exercise or a little bit of stress on your system helps the mitochondria clean themselves up, gets rid of old DNA, gets rid of unused GLAMI, damaged proteins. It's like if you have to run your car's engine periodically for the car to work, otherwise it doesn't work. So a little bit of stress is a good thing, and I think that's one of the reasons that alcohol is probably helpful. It does stress the system. It's definitely a toxin, but for some reason the human body does well with tiny bits of stress to make it stronger. And then again, moderation is the key to everything. Okay, next. The question is, do you know anything about red wine having chemicals or preservatives? Yeah, I think just like anything in the food industry, what a company can get away with, they're going to get away with to make a buck. So some of the cheaper wines, I think, are probably filled with different flavoring extracts and chemicals and stuff to give them whatever feature they're supposed to have. That's even true in spirits a lot of times. You just want to make sure it's a high quality alcohol or wine, right? Made with high quality water. And, you know, like everything else, a lot of times it comes down to price. You don't always have to go to super high price things. But you just need to make sure it doesn't have any added chemicals or whatever. And a lot of times the labels will indicate that because some of that is regulated. I don't have a fast, easy way for you to test your wine at home for preservatives and whatnot. Alcohol in and of itself is a preservative. Okay, so let's talk about exercise now. I know you guys have been dying for this part. So the importance of exercise. One of the reasons exercise is super important to prevent non-communicable diseases is because it reduces the glycemic burden. So it will actually pull glucose out of the bloodstream that insulin cannot or won't pull out, and it's non-insulin dependent. So alcohol actually turns on the GLUT4 transporters that don't need insulin to work, and they pull glucose out of the blood and put it into the muscle to be used for the oxidative phosphorylation, the energy production. So like if you do what I call a constitutional, if you walk for 10 to 15 minutes after you eat, you'll drop your blood glucose by about 20% just doing that. Just a little walk, a little 15-minute walk after dinner. Very, very healthy. Again, you're stressing the system a bit with exercise, particularly if you do high intensity exercise periodically. That's hormesis, so that's stress on your system, tearing the muscle fibers, tearing the fascia, overworking the mitochondria. It forces the body to clean itself up and become more efficient. And then increased glucose uptake, we just talked about. Increased muscle mass. Strength is something that helps us age well. Sarcopenia, or loss of muscle, is one of the problems of aging and one of the problems of frailty with aging. So if you can keep your muscle mass up, or at least keep it from getting completely disappeared, then you're doing yourself a favor for optimal aging, okay? And you have to exercise to do that. And we're going to talk about how much and how often and whatnot. And again, exercise keeps you euglycemic, okay? Where you don't have these huge spikes in your blood sugar that happen in our current environment, okay? Whoa. Okay. All right. So I have a lot of patients that literally don't move all day long, and it's difficult for me to even get them to the point where they might walk to get the mail and come back, okay? So any movement is better than none. Fidgeting is better than doing nothing. Fidgeting reduces all-cause mortality by like 20 to 30%, okay? Any movement's better than nothing. It's what I try to impart to my patients. Now, unfortunately, a lot of doctors, orthopedic surgeons especially, and medical doctors in the past were taught to tell patients, if you have any kind of injury, just don't do anything, sit there. Mostly because they were doing what's called CYA, cover your bleep, because nobody wants to get in trouble for telling someone to do something and then they may or may not get hurt doing it. So it's always easier and safer. Just say, oh, you're hurt, just bed rest. Oh, you're hurt, just sit on the couch all day. But that's like the worst thing you can tell someone to do for their overall health and wellness. So for my patients that are very, very sedentary, that don't do anything, just anything, like sit and do this 5 or 10 times every few minutes, you know, stretch the back muscles and the neck to counteract this constant position we're all in. There's a million things you can do, like really gentle stuff to get started. And if you do it consistently, then you're going to do more and more and more, to the point where then you're going to be walking with your grandkids and throwing the football again. Yoga is probably one of the best things people can do for themselves. And yoga is intimidating, but everyone should probably get involved in it. Restorative yoga, most places have a restorative yoga class. And that is the very gentle one that uses bolsters, and the moves are designed to be more approachable. So if you want to start yoga, which I would highly recommend, I would pick a restorative class and really just move. Movement is key, because it's going to drop your blood sugar levels. It's going to pull sugar out without insulin. It's going to make you stronger, and it's going to stress your mitochondria, and it's just generally going to get you healthier. Next. Okay, so what do you really need to do? Like, you hear so many different things of what you have to do to be a good exercise. First, you just don't want to be a couch potato, okay? That's the number one rule. Now, if you can make it a social endeavor, like these ladies on the bottom, all the better, right? Because then you're achieving both the social aspects of being a human as well as exercise. So don't stop exercising just because you heard that in your 40s you go downhill, or in your 50s life is over. That is a myth, okay? People are doing ultra marathons, 100-mile runs in their 80s and 90s now, okay? That's how we all should be. I'm not saying ultra marathon, but there's no reason to not exercise. And don't not start just because you're older. So let's say you've never exercised in the past 20 years and you find it difficult to move, like the first question we had. Find something that you can do to get moving, and it might be swimming. You may have to get into an aquatherapy program. If you're in waist-high water, I'm sorry, yeah, waist high, it takes about 60% of the load off your knees. And if you're in chest high, it takes about 80% of the load off. Walk back and forth in the pool. Anything you can do to move. They actually looked at a group of healthy men in the Netherlands and asked them to stop being healthy and sit on a couch for 2 weeks and do nothing. They weren't allowed to take more than 1,500 steps a day. And in just that 2 weeks, that group of men added 7% body fat. That's how bad it is to sit around all day. Okay, and it's literally going to kill you. So next. So somebody became a couch potato at 49. I would say find a personal trainer, a physical therapist, or a physician that'll show you stuff you can do even sitting on the couch. Like anything, right? If you can, and I'm not obviously the treating physician here, but I would say somebody's going to find a movement that you can do to get started at least, or at least ask to be put in aquatherapy. Because aquatherapy in a nice heated pool in a therapy center, that is probably a great way for a lot of people to start, I think, because it offloads the body weight. Okay. All right, so how much exercise is enough? How much do I actually have to do? So again, another Danish study, they're very interested in health there. 40% of the men there are actually called couch potatoes. Like they actually are that sedentary, believe it or not, even in Europe where you walk everywhere. So then this group of scientists did an 11-week, remember how I told you all these studies are so short, 11-week, not even a full 3 months, studies at the benefits of 30 minutes a day or 60 minutes a day of exercise, moderate, like on a treadmill, I think. They were all young men at risk. So they had risk factors for cardiovascular disease, be it elevated triglycerides, high cholesterol, whatever the risk factors were. They put them into the 3 groups. One group, they said, continue to be a couch potato. One group, they did 30 minutes a day. One group did 60 minutes. They found the same overall health benefit in the 30-minute and 60-minute group. So you don't have to go crazy here. 30 minutes a day is probably enough. I want to say our federal government recommends 150 minutes a week, which works out to 20 to 30 minutes a day, which really is not a lot if you look at us evolutionarily, and we could talk about that too. But in general, you don't have to go run at level 8 on the treadmill for 60 minutes to get a benefit of exercise. So a lot of people think of it in an all or none, like if I can't go run a 5K, why bother? No, that's not true. Even a small, slow walk for 15 to 30 minutes a day is going to benefit you immensely. It helps your insulin sensitivity. It drops your liver's insulin resistance. It increases your fitness rating, your ability to efficiently process oxygen. It increases your muscle, as we discussed, and reduces your risk of sarcopenia, and it helps your mitochondria become healthier. Next. So humans were evolved in a certain way, right? We're upright, we mostly walk, and that's really what our bodies were designed to do. We can run, but evolutionarily speaking, it was more or less rare. So walking, in my opinion, is probably one of the best exercises, one of the most natural, and one of the most effective, and one of the most approachable. So I'm a big fan of walking with a little bit of muscle work in between. So if you just walk 20 or 30 minutes 3 times a week and do a little bit of weightlifting twice a week, you're doing good. That's pretty much all you have to do, the minimum for optimal healthy aging. Nobody's telling you to run a marathon. Nobody's saying you got to swim 3 miles a day. Nobody's saying you have to bench press your own body weight. Just do a little bit. That's all you got to do, and you're going to be better off, as long as you're eating healthy too, mind you. Okay? The muscles were functional evolutionaries. Everything we did was for a purpose. Nobody was running on a treadmill, right? They were running to get a deer to eat or something. Like there was a reason for everything. So like this, I put this picture here because look at everything this guy, and that's an elderly man, everything this guy has to do to be able to pick this apple out of that tree. Okay? He's got to have good, strong back. He's got to have balance. He's got to have shoulder reach. He's got to have good neck, periscapular muscles, and he's got to have the aerobic ability to go up and down that ladder. But he's out in nature. He's picking an apple. He's using his body. That man is prolonging his life as we speak. I mean, that is the dream right there, right? Okay, and then of course, an apple a day keeps people like me away, so don't forget that. So next. Yeah, even a 2-pound, 4-pound dumbbell, just doing a few curls. I mean, that's movement. You're moving, you're using your muscles, you're pulling glucose out of your serum, meaning blood flow. Oh, James just said at the age of 64, he started yoga last year. That's awesome. That makes me very, very happy. I swear every day, if people ate like this talk and did yoga, the medical industry would be cut by probably 80%. Like you just wouldn't need us anymore. Okay, tricks and tips if you think you can't exercise. Fidgeting is movement. If you think you can't get off the couch, if you're a true couch potato and you really feel like you have no ability and no one's helping you do more, just start fidgeting. At least you're moving. That reduces all-cause mortality by 20 to 30%. Standing is always better than sitting. Most of my employees now have a sit-to-stand desk or a standing desk. I have a sit desk and a stand desk. Now, in my job, I'm blessed that I'm up and running around and walking and I'm all over the place. I find that, like, even this talk, sitting this long, I don't like this. It doesn't feel right to me. So if you can get a sit-to-stand desk, particularly if you're stuck working from home, standing is much better than sitting because you're using muscles, you're using balance, you're working your core, okay? Folding laundry is actually a good form of exercise and burns more calories than doing nothing. So you know what? Stand up and fold the laundry. You know, do things like that. Any movement is better than nothing. And then postprandial movement is the best. So after you eat a big meal, which hopefully your meals aren't too big, but let's say after a lunch or a dinner, go take a little 10-minute walk if you're able. If you're not able to, do some chair yoga. You know, talk to your physician or your physical therapist and find something that you can do. Because if you don't move, you're just going to decline. Cartilage has to be loaded. Tendons have to be used. Muscles have to be used, or they all just degenerate. That is a laundry machine that folds your laundry. Don't buy that on the top there. I had to put that in there. That is how ridiculous the Western world has become. Like, you're really just going to be able to sit on a couch with your ocular thing on and never move. It's going to be awful. So let's try to fight that. Yeah, physical therapy is key, I think. A lot of states you have direct access, okay? So if you don't have a doctor that believes in physical therapy, or you don't think your doctor will be receptive, you can call a physical therapy clinic and go see them. You don't have to have a doctor's appointment anymore, okay? Phytochemicals. This is one of the reasons that I love the Mediterranean diet. And all of my Well Theory products are based on phytochemicals and the beauty of these substances. The flavonoids, the phenols, the minerals, the vitamins, the terpenes, all of these natural molecules that were developed in plants that have receptors and reasons to exist for humans that we get out of a healthy diet, okay? And then, of course, I supplement with them too. They are the key. Your mitochondria function better. You have less of those damaging electrons or oxidative stress. You can I guess you can not, what's the word I'm looking for? You can detox the inflammatory levels, okay? So you can reduce the pro-inflammatory cytokines and inflammation with these phytochemicals. So I think nowadays in the modern era, okay, remember I told you the American diet's 75 to 80% ultra processed. And even if you're trying to eat a perfect diet, which is nearly impossible unless you have a private chef and you gazillions of dollars, which, what is that, 0.001% of the country, you're going to have to supplement with antioxidants and omega-3s and anti-inflammatories that are natural, I think, to fight off all of the badness that is around us. So the reactive oxygen species on the bottom slide here, those are those unpaired electrons that are a byproduct of the electron transport chain in the mitochondria. They damage DNA. They alter functional proteins. They change chromosomes. They damage the lifespan of different cells in DNA, and they destroy cell membranes and oxidize the membranes of the cell, and things just fall apart. You have got to find a way to capture those electrons. So antioxidants are key. And so from that and from all of this learning, we started Well Theory with just keep adding different antioxidants to fight the ravages of our life. Alpha lipoic acid is one of the better ones I like. It's because it's both water and lipid soluble. So part of it can be in the cell membrane, protecting the cell membrane from what's called lipid peroxidation, which is the electron damage to the cell membrane. And then the other part of the molecule can be in the matrix, in the fluid surrounding the cell, and acting as a small molecule antioxidant and sucking up the free electrons that are floating around. So alpha lipoic acid's awesome. It's actually used in Europe to treat diabetic neuropathy. I recommend it to all of my patients with neuropathy and anybody interested in brain health. And then the restful sleep. So this is, remember, sleep is so important. This has tart cherry, which is loaded with flavonoids that are antioxidant. GABA, which reduces the excitability of glutamate on the nerves and lets the calms the brain down and lets you sleep. And then melatonin. Melatonin is a natural hormone we make, and it's very antioxidant in and of itself. A million things you can do to make your life better and be better and healthier, and it doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to pay a lot of food for special diet plans, because all that food that gets mailed to you, those like protein diets and whatnot, they're all highly processed packaged foods. Personally, to me, that makes no sense whatsoever for overall mental cognitive health, overall cardiovascular health, et cetera, et cetera. I think we got to go back in time. You're going to have to think about how small people's refrigerators are in Europe, okay? You can maybe store 1 or 2 meals there at the most, okay? We really just need to start buying more whole grains, more fresh fruits and vegetables, and cook ourselves with our friends. I mean, that sounds like a great life to me. And guess what? It's way healthier.
This is our free gift.
Oh, this is our free gift. Who knew? So
Lisa Howard was really engaging and had a lot of questions. So
all right, so Lisa Howard gets this free gift. We're going to mail it to you probably this week, I would imagine. Thank you for your amazing questions. So you guys had great questions, by the way, and we've got some more. So if you want to stick around for the questions, we're going to do them now.
Lisa wanted to know, she has a bad pain with high triglycerides.
Okay.
She wants to know if she was to start walking. She said treadmill, but that seems like something.
So this is somebody that's in pain and has high triglyceride levels who wants to start walking and asks, should she start on the treadmill? Well, first of all, go if your triglycerides are super high, just go get like just a checkup and make sure your heart and you don't have ischemic disease to your legs. If you get cleared at your basic checkup, and at that checkup, I would ask about omega-3. There are some prescription level omega-3s. I prescribe them to some people to get them up to that 4 grams a day for a while to fight the inflammatory aspects of triglycerides with the anti-inflammatory aspects of omega-3. That'll make you feel better to start off to fight those triglycerides. Treadmills, I'm not a huge fan of. Treadmills are kind of dangerous unless you're really good at using them. People die on treadmills every year, flipping off the back because they're not very experienced. And if you're not like walking a lot, that's probably not the best place to start. Just a little walk around the block, and sometimes a block's too much. So, just down to the next house and back is probably enough. And if you have to use a walker, use a walker. And if you need to go to physical therapy to get started, do that. But anything you can do to start, it all gets better. You're never going to get better if you don't start. So just start small, start safely, make sure, if you need somebody to walk with you, then get home health. Have physical therapy come out to the house and walk with you. But I think treadmill might be a bit advanced if you're an exercise novice.
What do you recommend for inflammation?
Okay, what do I recommend for inflammation? Wow, that's another talk. We talked about omega-3 fatty acids, those reduce inflammation. Good sleep reduces inflammation. That deep breathing exercise I showed you, that reduces inflammation. Exercise reduces inflammation. For supplements, turmeric is amazing, okay? Palmitoyl ethanolamide is a natural fatty acid that your body produces in order to reduce inflammation anytime there's stress in the body, particularly around nerves. So supplementing with PEA is an amazing way to reduce inflammation. Ginger reduces inflammation. Anything from a berry, my favorite's tart cherry. It's just such a great painkiller, the tart cherry extract. It actually functions similar to Celebrex, but in a much healthier way with none of the GI or cardiac side effects and whatnot. Melatonin, CBD is an antioxidant. And a lot of vitamin C, vitamin E, beta carotene, all of those they reduce inflammation and reduce electron stress.
Besides dark chocolate, what's your go-to sweet besides fruit?
What is my go-to sweet besides fruit? I do love dark chocolate. The question asker asked about dark chocolate. Now, in theory, the dark chocolate's supposed to be 70% or more cacao. That gets a little bit bitter. So I think if you're above 60%, you're probably okay with dark chocolate. I don't crave sweets anymore. I like healthy, natural foods now. I mean, like if I have a bite of cake, I'm not a fan anymore. I think that I've evolved into that. I like homemade bread that I make myself, and I put like earth butter on it. That's my go-to for dessert. I know it seems weird. And I love a good organic tart apple, like a good Gala or Fuji apple. Dark chocolate, yes, but I can't think of a sweet that I actually ever crave. Hold on, we might have another question.
What brings down LDL?
Oh, goodness. What brings down low-density lipoproteins? Well, think avoid animal products. That's the easiest way, because the advanced glycation end products upregulate the LDL production and don't let the cholesterol system work properly. So if you can avoid more of those dietary advanced glycation end products and animal proteins, your LDL will naturally drop. And then alpha lipoic acid can help reduce it a bit and keep it from getting oxidized. You just don't want it to get oxidized. So as long as you keep your antioxidants up, the risk of your LDL getting oxidized to the point that it becomes a plaque will kind of go away. But I think if you just start thinking plant-based foods, plant-based diets, that's the easiest way to achieve that goal. And then omega-3s, of course.
Long haul COVID. What do you recommend?
This question, this is difficult to answer. The question is, what do I recommend for long haul COVID? I don't think enough has been nailed down about that, except that it's out there. We don't really know why, so there's no mechanistic answer to that. I think anything that affects the immune system, as a virus would, anything you can do to bump up the immune system would be good. So D3, CBD actually has receptors on the white blood cells to make them function better. So I think taking CBD, D3, things like that, make your immune system function better. Anything you can do to reduce the inflammation, like the PEA we talked about, the turmeric and the tart cherry. And quercetin is, so that's why an apple a day keeps a doctor away, is because apple skins have quercetin in them, high levels of it. So do berries. So quercetin is very strongly pro-immune system and anti-inflammatory. Anything you do to bump up your immune system can't help but fight long COVID, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a viral attack on your immune system. Yeah, we actually have an herbal immune remedy that has like echinacea and olive leaf extract and quercetin. So the long COVID, that's a great question. There's not enough papers written on it for me to answer it in a great way right now. I'm sorry. What type of milk? Okay. So I'm going to guess this person wants to know, do I recommend oat milk or almond milk or cashew milk or whatever? I personally still drink cow milk, okay? I just get organic and I drink 2%. I love milk. I like to mix it with my New Orleans cold brew, mocha flavored iced coffee in the middle of clinic. And my kids get cow milk. I've tried to do the like the oat milk and whatnot, but if you flip over and look at the ingredients, there's so much added sugar, and you know it's high heat processed in a factory to get it to that stage. So although animal protein's not the greatest, milk and eggs actually have fewer of the advanced glycation end products than other animal products. So while they're not perfect, they're relatively okay. So I still drink regular milk, organic 2%. Now, a lot of people swear by the nut milks, and actually I just bought a lady that works with us her own machine to make her own nut milk so that it's a little bit healthier. So I think if you do something like that, nut milks are the way to go. And then you just got to look on the back. They add so much sugar and just stuff to these things that are supposedly healthy. I can't wrap my mind around it.
Is omega-3 used for hydrolysis considered a blood thinner, or would it interact with Eliquis?
So the question is, do omega-3s interact with Eliquis, and or are they considered a blood thinner? Most of the studies show you have to take more than 4 grams a day of omega-3 for it to appreciably increase the level of thinness in your blood. Again, if you're on Eliquis and you've got high triglycerides and you want to start taking fish oil or omega-3, you're obviously going to have to go talk to your treating physician and get the okay. But most studies show unless you're taking 5-6 grams a day, you're not affecting your bleeding time that much.
Are your products gluten-free?
Yeah, the question is, are my products gluten-free? And yes, they are. So the question is, D2, vitamin D2 is added to some milk products. Isn't that something to avoid? So the issue with D2 is it's the inactive form. So unless you're going and sunbathing every day or getting enough sun exposure to convert it at the skin level to the active form of D3, supplementing with D2 isn't super helpful. So like when I write supplements for all my patients, I only give them D3 or cholecalciferol. I don't ever write for ergocalciferol, which is D2, because no one's going out in the sun. I mean, we're in the deep south, but it's too hot. You stay inside with the air conditioning. So everyone down here is D deficient, believe it or not. So I always supplement with D3 because it's the active form.
Somebody said, I've been taught that addiction has its roots in nutritional deficiencies. What do you think?
So this question is interesting. Let's see how I'm going to answer it because it's not really in my wheelhouse. The question is, does addiction have its roots in nutritional deficiencies? In some ways, it probably does because oxidative stress damages the brain enough that you could lose that impulse control we talked about. A lot of addiction is linked to things that happen in childhood, which is, I'm not a psychologist, but there's a ton of data out there on this of how pain was managed when you were a kid or different traumatic events that may have happened in your childhood. A lot of that can lead to addictive behaviors. But certainly, if your brain is not working right because you're so filled with inflammation and oxidative stress and you're just eating processed foods all day, it would be far easier to become addicted to some sort of euphoric substance, I think, for sure. But I'm not an addiction specialist. So I hope that helped. I don't think that was a great answer, but. Okay. Yeah, so these are our new gummies, and we do use actual sugar in these, mostly because and it's not a lot, it's a small amount, because I didn't want any of the fake sweeteners that we talked about, even though probably monk fruit would have been okay. It's just such a small amount that I felt that it was probably reasonable to add. But you see, all of this is a lot of antioxidants. I do want to talk about the CoQ10. CoQ10 is the transporter of the electrons in the electron transport chain and is massively important in your body. It is a very strong antioxidant and is integral to energy production and function of all cells. And people that are on statins that have the cardiovascular disease, so like Crestor, Lovustatin, Prevestatin, all those kind of meds, a lot of people have muscle pain, and that's because those meds drop your levels of CoQ10. So if you have muscle pain and you're on a statin, I would get on CoQ10 as soon as you can. Because if you're that low that your muscles hurt, imagine the level of oxidative stress going on throughout the body. So I think CoQ10 is another hugely important antioxidant I did forget to mention earlier.
What are your thoughts on krill oil?
My thoughts on krill oil. I think krill oil is it's a great substance, just like if you're taking, like our nervous system multi has chlorella in it, which is a green algae, I believe. Anything that's the base of the food pyramid in the ocean is the way to go. That's where the omega-3s all start. So like down to the plankton, the krills, and the seaweed and whatnot, and the algae. That's why wild caught fish are better than farm raised, because that's what they're eating. So they're filling themselves with omega-3s, as opposed to the farm raised fish that are getting fed corn that's dribbled onto their little farm. So krill oil is great.
What dose of CBD and what are other fats?
What's the proper dose of CBD? Great question. Nobody really knows. I start my patients out at about 25 milligrams a day, and then you can go up to 100 very easily with no effect really on anything. Some of the prescription level CBD that's used for like seizure disorders, that's up to like 500 to 800 milligrams a day. I would never propose that much. I think anywhere from 25 to 100 milligrams a day is great. Yeah, there's all different forms based on your preference. So you can get it in a gummy if you don't do well swallowing capsules. There is a tincture form, and you can drop it under your tongue or add it to like tea. A lot of people don't like that kind of oily, grassy sense because it's like a natural herb. So that's hard on people. And then, of course, there's a gel pill you can take that's a little bit easier to swallow. The CBD is usually oil-based. That's why it's usually a gel capsule or a tincture or in a gummy.
Somebody was
Do any of my product? Oh, the question is, do any of our products have 0 THC or tetrahydrocannabidiol? The oil that we have, the CBD oil, is an extract, so it's pure CBD with none of the other aspects of the plant.
If you start CoQ10, is it necessary to adjust other supplements?
If you start CoQ10, is it necessary to adjust other supplements? I would say no. I think CoQ10 absorbs certain electrons that are damaging in certain parts of that electron transport chain, and other small molecule antioxidants and the lipid soluble antioxidants all work in different areas for different free radicals or reactive oxygen species. So I think you could take it in addition to your current regimen quite safely. Yeah, the one we've been working on this for a while because I, of course, want to have a CoQ10 product. Ours should be out soon. But in general, CoQ10, just so you know, about 100 to 150 milligrams a day is probably reasonable, especially if you're on a statin. But you could take it in addition to all the other supplements.
What supplements do you suggest that you start with?
So what supplements do I suggest you start with? That's difficult to answer without knowing you. But so basically, I would go, if I were you, I would go get a vitamin panel run and see what you're deficient in. The basics, you need to be on calcium, D3, zinc, magnesium, C, B, a B complex, CoQ10. And then if you've taken that, then you start adding the flavonoids and the phenols and the other antioxidants like the tart cherry extract, the CoQ10, the quercetin, the beta carotene, and just start trying to eat anything colorful on the periphery of your grocery store that you can cook yourself. Broccoli is a superfood, as we discussed. I mean, I think if you ate broccoli every day, you'd be feeling a lot better. It just has so much in it that just makes everything work better.
Do you recommend for a person who's become diagnosed with dementia?
So question is, what do I recommend for a person diagnosed with dementia? Well, the Mediterranean diet. Studies have shown even mild dementia, moderate dementia, or severe neurodegenerative disorders, everybody improves on this Mediterranean diet or lifestyle. Now, there are some specific diets that are specifically geared towards people with neurodegenerative disorders. For instance, some people with Parkinson's are recommended to go on the paleo diet. It's all physician, I guess, directed you to talk to the physician. But for mild dementia, the nervous system multi, which has the omega-3 to help build the cell membranes. It has a resveratrol, which helps to allow neurons to grow. It's PEA, which decreases inflammation around nerve endings. And then other substances that detox or chelate heavy metals out of the system to help the brain. I think that one's good. Alpha lipoic acid. And then exercise. Exercise has been shown to help cognitive function, so walks. All right, I think that's it. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of hope that this is not impossible. It is doable, and it doesn't have to be stressful. It can actually be really yummy and fun, and you can hang out with your friends. You just need to think about avoiding those packaged factory foods, making your own food, and trying to eat more fruits and vegetables. Walk a little bit, do a little bit of weight. Any movement's better than no movement. And just don't give up hope. Baby steps, SMART goals, and do the deep breathing anytime you think you're having a craving that's to your detriment. And then otherwise, have a great end of January.
Thank you. One last question, which is interesting.
Oh, we have a last question. Hold on.
Help with fibromyalgia and bone degeneration?
The question is, what would help with fibromyalgia and bone degeneration? So fibromyalgia is one of many disorders on what's called a central sensitization syndrome, which just means nerve endings are upregulated and hyperexcitable. So like a fibromyalgia person, this hurts them, right? That's not supposed to hurt, but somebody with fibromyalgia, it does. So for fibromyalgia, anything that reduces inflammation around nerve endings would be helpful. So like PEA and alpha lipoic acid. Avoid deep tissue massage because that heavy pushing tends to really bother fibromyalgia. And then anything that improves sleep, because to have fibromyalgia, you have to have the pain. You have to not have something else, okay? So you can't have lupus or something. It's got to just be fibromyalgia. And most people have a mood issue, like they're either depressed or anxious, and they all have sleep disorders. So improving your sleep, so taking the CBD or the tart cherry or anything like that to improve your sleep will or I recommend medical marijuana for a lot of people with fibromyalgia, honestly, because it helps them sleep, it reduces their pain, and it reduces oxidative stress on the brains. I think anything that reduces your oxidative stress and your inflammation and avoiding deep muscle work, and getting better sleep would help. And then delta-8 is another thing. So that's delta-8 tetrahydrocannabidiol. That is a type of terpene, I guess, out of the cannabis or cannabis plant. So THC, or what you think of as marijuana, is delta-9 THC. Delta-8 THC actually works just as good, and it's oftentimes much less expensive. I would just say don't buy it at a gas station. We just came out with our product, which has been tested and is safe and doesn't have heavy metals or anything in it. That's another option. Also highly antioxidant and anti-inflammatory.
Any thoughts on astaxanthin? ASTAXANTHIN?
Acetaxanthin, I think, is what they're asking about. This is the antioxidant that you find in the shells of like shrimp and whatnot. It's like a seafood substance, if it's what I think they're asking about. Yeah, very good antioxidant, very healthy for you. So like I try to eat as much shrimp and seafood as possible. Crustaceans are a good source of this. So crawfish, shrimp, anything with that sort of color gives you that substance, which is very beneficial to the mitochondria and to health in general. Oh, it's a question about dosage on THC. That is impossible to answer. Every single person is different. To date, nobody's been able to nail down the proper dose for person A versus person B. That's kind of a case-by-case basis that we do. For the delta-8, I recommend people start with a quarter or a half of a 12.5 milligram gummy, and then just see how it affects you and if it works, and then alter the dose depending on your system and whatever else you've taken in that day.
Lisa said she would love to try your products. We'll tell her it's coming your way this week. Make sure.
Oh, yeah, Lisa is going to get that little gift bundle, the alpha lipoic and the sleep gummy, I think. We're going to send that to you, Lisa, for you to try this week because you won the prize. Oh, that's so great. I'm so happy to hear that. Pearl said that my products have helped her with her plantar fasciitis, which is awesome. Nobody wants their feet to hurt. And if I'll just say one more thing, because my business partner will be mad if I don't. Joe Burrow is playing this weekend, and he is an LSU Tiger. Okay, so everybody has to root for him. All right. We're good? All right. Thank you for spending an hour with me on a Saturday. This was fun. We'll do it again in a month. All right. All right. Take care, y'all. Have a good one.